Make way for royalty. Here's your look at the new Hiya Toys Aliens Alien Queen Exquisite Mini. Exquisite Mini is a new standard setting series for 1/18 scale, featuring super articulation action figures under Hiya Toys. Before we get a closer look at the brand new Exquisite Mini Aliens Queen, let me first send out a big thank you to the folks over at Hiya Toys that provided this sample of the Alien Queen that we could have a look at in this review. One thing you may already notice is the fact that she is being propped up by a display stand. This display stand is crucial when it comes to displaying the figure, as she's not going to have the means to stand without it. I'm going to bring in my ruler, but what I am going to do is I'm not going to count the display stand just in case you're curious as to how tall the Alien Queen stands. So I'm going to not count that. The figure stands 7¼ inches in height, or about 18½ centimeters tall. And though not from the same film, we can actually bring in one that previously looked at Exquisite Minis. Here she is next to the big chap. Again, they're not quite the same alien from at least the same film, but it gives you an idea of how much bigger the Queen is versus a regular Alien Exquisite Mini. The Alien Queen does come included with some accessories, as well as requires some assembly, which we'll talk more about in a second. We'll just pick the figure up, and as I said, she really doesn't have the available means to stand on her own, so I'm just going to lay her down slightly to have a look at the display stand that she comes included with ×4. Although right now you're only looking at 3 of the panels, she comes included with 4 panels, and they're all the same panel that comes included with a regular Exquisite Mini Alien, just simply ×4. The other one would have been, again, packaged in 4s, so again, you can have a combination of several of them. I just have the 3 connected together right now, but you can as well connect 2 on top and have yourself a perfect rectangle. I just find like this is fine for the time being of displaying her. She does also have included with each of the individual display stands corresponding eye brackets. So each one of these will come included with a pair of eye brackets. So again, you can either have it lengthwise by 4, you can have 4 as a perfect rectangle. It's entirely up to you how you want to have them displayed, but for the time being, the 3 work fine for me. She does also have an actual neck piece that attaches to the regular peg post. Normally, these would attach to the underside of the figure's feet, but in the case of the Queen, she doesn't have pegals on the undersides of her feet. She really wouldn't be able to stand on her own anyways. So you take yourself the clear post here, and you attach it in the place where the foot normally would have gone, and this is the thing that perches and keeps the Queen from falling over. One thing I did notice, though, is being that they're using clear plastic. I have already started to develop a bit of a crack down below, you can see right there, and that's with very little pressure applied. I don't think it's the weight of the Queen necessarily. I think it's just the first couple of times I've attached it to the peg has resulted in a little bit of cracking. So if you are picking this up for yourself, just be a little bit careful that that crack doesn't develop on yours as well. But once that's in place, kind of just twist the post ever slightly, and then you can then take the Queen. And I find it helps just to balance her right around this section of sort of her abdomen area. If you have that resting on top of it, you kind of angle the Queen. In fact, you know what, let's just turn this just a slight bit. Yeah, you can take then the Queen and just angle her on top of the display stand. And if you get the right spot going, it may take a couple of times and passes to do this. Just take again the Alien Queen and just resting her on top of it. This is again probably a time where you may even want to just have it doubled up and have the display stand ×4 as a perfect rectangle. But still, it serves the purpose fine to have the 3 connected together. I wouldn't connect any more than 2. Or I wouldn't connect any less than 2. 1 on its own would not be enough, I think, to stabilize the figure from falling over. You may want to double it up, or in this case, triple it up, or even still, you can then add an extra display stand and make it, like I said, a perfect rectangle. One little bit of assembly, I say one little bit, there was quite involved effort to do this. One little bit of assembly that is required. It comes included with all the spikes that stick out from the back of her torso. I have succeeded in attaching at least 5 of the 6, and each one of these attach into little tiny holes located on the side of her torso. 1 on that side, or 3 on that side, and 3 on the other. You may notice that 2 are only on the one side and missing the 3rd. Unfortunately, though, this one hole right here I don't think is completely drilled in. I may have to take myself a screwdriver and even dowel in the hole just a little bit more, because unfortunately I couldn't get the third one in place. But basically all you do is you just wiggle them in, twist them in until finally it holds and secures them. And then from there you have the adjustability of having the ball joints. You don't want to move these too much. I find moving them too much the extreme, and it's removing them from the socket joints. Just be careful of these. And like I said, it took me, I want to say, at least 45 minutes. I kid you not, to actually get all of these already in place. And finally, the last one, I don't know why for some reason I decided to do this one as the last one, gave me so much of a headache trying to get in place. I'm just left off for the time being. It doesn't look as if it's been drilled all the way through. So I may end up having to deepen that hole to get the last and final spike in place. But once they're in place, you do have the adjustability of having ball joints. Getting a closer look at the Queen, one other thing she comes included with is 2 variations of her smaller inner jaw. She comes with the smaller of the 2, which is basically just a part that only sticks out barely from the front of her mouth. And then she also has a longer version. Let's go ahead and go with the longer version for right now. You open up the mouth, and I don't know if you may be able to see it right now, but there's a hole on the inside of her mouth. You then take the inner jaw, and that just plugs into place. It's a little harder to do. In fact, it's even helpful, I find, to hold the head sculpt like this, and then just sort of force the inner jaw on the inside. Again, this is the longer of the 2. If you wanted to have the shorter one, that also works the same way as well. But I always feel like if you're going to be going with the shorter jaw anyways, the smaller mouth inside, I would probably just leave it out completely and just have the ability to close her mouth. Just to detach that, you can see that the mouth does open and close perfectly fine on its own. Getting a closer look now at the Queen, now that we have covered off all the things that come included with the figure, she is a glorious looking sight. This was certainly one of those wish items that I always hoped that Hiya Toys would cover, seeing as that they've already done the Alien figures, quite an abundant amount of Alien Hiya Toys Exquisite Minis. I was kind of hoped that they would at some point do the Queen, and now that they finally have, we have ourselves quite the nice 3 3/4 inch scale Queen, who's quite considerably, again, bigger than the regular Exquisite Minis that we've got before. The coloring on this figure is more the colors of a traditional blue than we get the blacks with some of the other Aliens figures that we've looked at before. One of the notable traits of the Alien Queen is the big giant Queen crest that's on the top of her head, which is exquisitely detailed, not only sculpted but painted nicely with a brushing of blue over top of it. In some of the cases, like the head on the Queen, for example, you can see it sort of has the coiled look of a snake, the way they've darkened strips of black over top of the existing blue. It is a really nice looking crest. It's slightly warped on mine, but nothing in that a little bit of heating up with a hairdryer or even submerging in hot water can't fix. The sides are fine, but the middle one here is slightly more on the warp side. But it's a really nice looking head sculpt. The Queen does have the option to also tuck in her head, which basically involves you taking the top of the crest and sliding it forward, kind of giving it the concealed face that she has in the earlier end of the movie when we first see her. But then you can take the top of the crest and slide it back. And this really gives you the full reveal of the Alien Queen's face, which does have posability. You can move it back and forth, up and down, and does have the open and closed mouth, which has some really nice use of a translucent, off clear colored plastic. Sort of has an off yellowish tint to it. It has the strands on either side of her face, as well as nicely sculpted teeth, both on the top and the bottom of her jaw. As we look at certainly the rest of the Queen, she has larger arms on either side of her torso, and slightly smaller arms that are ball jointed on the inside of her torso, which we'll look at more so in a second. Some really nice details sculpted and captured here on the look of the Exquisite Mini Queen. She proportionately is a nice shape and size of Queen, where I don't feel like anything is really off on the body proportions. The size of her crest, I think, is appropriately sized to the rest of her body, as well as the back hind legs that she uses for running. As with the other Alien Queen figures that we've looked at before, the other Alien figures that we've looked at before from Hiya Toys, the tail on the Alien Queen also does have a wire frame, and it looks like they've used softer plastic to get the job done. The tail, in fact, actually is more pliable than some of the other Exquisite Minis we've looked at before, and it is a really nice sculpted tail. It certainly helps stabilize the figure as well when you were looking at put her on display. Looking at the articulation now in the Queen, once again we'll go back to her head. So I guess we could count this as part of our articulation, the fact that the crest does slide forward and also slides back. The figure does also have articulation that we've already covered off in the head, so that's on a ball joint. It allows the head to move back and forth this way, up and down, as well as the figure does have articulation on her lower jaw. When we get to the further back end of the figure, closer more to the back neck of the figure, she does have a ball joint, so you can move that all the way around. The only thing you will want to be careful of is not knocking these in the process. For the amount of time it took me to actually plug those, at least the 5 of the 6 in place, I would hate to have to go back and have to do that again. The type of plastic that they end up using for those pegs is pretty soft. To then try to navigate that into the holes can be quite problematic, and you may spend a lot of time doing it. As I said, it probably took me about 45 minutes to plug the 5 of the 6 actually in. I don't know if I would want to do that again. As for the arms are on hinge joints, so you can bring the arms out this way. You can also move them forward and back. The figure does have a double hinge on the elbow, so there's one and a secondary one further up. The figure has articulation as well in the hands, so you can rotate those all the way around. The hands themselves are pretty soft in plastic. You can see how easy it is for me to move the individual digits like that. And then, of course, the lower arms, just below the undercarriage of the queen, are on ball joints, so you can rotate those all the way around. There is no any additional articulation in the elbows nor in the wrists. All of this is just a sculpted arm that plug into the back of the queen via the ball joints. Then we get to the back hind legs. The hind legs do have a hinge joint, more of a ball joint in fact, so you can get a splits going on the legs. You can bring the legs forward and you can bring the legs back. But again, with all of that, mileage may vary with how much you can actually get the queen to stand. It's probably best just suited to have her standing like this, and then again using the cradle clip on the back or on the underside of the queen to help prevent the figure from falling over. She does have back hinging on the knees, if you would consider those to be the hinges of the knees on the queen, and she does have articulation on the back hind leg as well. Really, again, some nice rich color that they've incorporated here. The black and the blue work so well, and the fact that they make the blue so shiny as they do, it really does help make it look like the alien queen is wet. Again, she does have the articulation on the back hind legs. She does have articulation as well in the feet as well. You can move those up and down. And like the queen in the movie, she does have high heels. I always think that's fun, the fact that the queen has high heels. As I said, that she already has the articulation, the wire frame in her tail, so again, you can manipulate that back and forth. I mentioned already, she doesn't have peg holes in the undersides of her feet, so really crucial when it comes to getting her to stand upright, you really do have to use yourself the display stand. And again, you can get the display stand clip, just providing the clip doesn't fall out for you. Get the clip in place, and you can actually get the alien queen to stand. I see already that one of these have fallen out, so I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time popping that back in place. Other than the problems of putting those spikes back in the back of her torso, she is a really nice looking queen. Always the figure that I wish that Hiya Toys would have produced, seeing as we've already done and seen so many alien exquisite minis here on this channel. Again, my wish character of all time, one that I wish that Hiya Toys would have covered was the alien queen. Now that we actually have ourselves the alien queen in hand, she's a glorious sight. If you are wanting to pick up an alien queen in previous companies' releases and maybe just didn't have the afforded space to work with, one of the benefits of the exquisite mini aliens is the fact that they're pretty small. Granted, yes, the alien queen is a little bit bigger than the other exquisite mini aliens that we've looked at before, but still her sizing is still smaller than the other company alien queens we've gotten before. She has tons of articulation, tons of detail, and really good paint applications. The alien queen here from Hiya Toys is a great pickup. Again, if you want to get yourself the alien queen, but you just don't have a lot of space to work with. Prior to unboxing the Alien Queen Exquisite Mini, one concern I did have was how stable the figure was going to be on her display stand. Because after all, unlike other Alien Exquisite Minis we've looked at earlier here on this channel that normally just attach to their corresponding display stands, Alien Queen doesn't attach to those pegs because she doesn't have peg holes on the undersides of her feet. Instead, you spread the weight amongst several display stands, and luckily Hiya Toys includes 4 of them. I find 3 are more than enough to get the job done, that you can spread her footprint across the 3, and then the middle display stand is the thing that holds the clear post in place. And that is the thing that really does support, if not all the weight, most of the weight. At least she does have strong joints in the back of her hind legs, but again, like all of it is resting on that clear post, which unfortunately, as you probably already saw in this review, has started to develop cracking at the bottom of it where it attaches to that peg. I might even just sacrifice one of the display stands and just glue it completely in place. because really, I'm never going to be changing the configuration out. And even if I do, I'm only going to still attach it to one of the pegs anyways. I think I'm just going to glue it in place, because really the last thing you would want to have happen, as you take the queen and you move her around on your shelf, she's going to shift back and forth, and the weight again and the pressure is going to be put on the bottom of that clear post. And more the time it shifts back and forth, I think is where you're really going to start developing cracking. No, instead, I'm just going to glue it in place, call it a day. And again, I have more than enough Exquisite Mini display stands anyways that I'm content to sacrifice one of them if it means that the figure of the queen here isn't going to fall over. Now, the Alien Queen is superposable, which I hope I was able to cover off in this review. She's a very detailed version of the queen, very nicely painted in the cool colors of blue. Any little bit of problems I had with the figure are more to the post that's supporting the figure upright, and again, putting those spikes on the back of her torso. I still can only get 5 of the 6 in, with one of the holes being notably not as deep as the others. I maybe take a screwdriver and maybe dowel in that hole a little bit deeper to accommodate the 6th one, but other than that, I couldn't have been happier with the way that the Alien Queen Exquisite Mini turned out. A big thank you once again to the folks over at Hiya Toys that provided this sample of the Alien Queen Exquisite Mini that we could have a look at in this review. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. And if you are new to this channel, you're enjoying the content that you're seeing, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notification so you get those reminders, of course, of whenever new videos are going to be popping up. And just an FYI, a friendly 411 from person behind the camera to you in front of the monitor, we are going to be looking at even more Exquisite Minis from the folks over at Hiya Toys. So make sure, yes, you're keeping your peepers peeled to this channel. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.